Welcome back, everybody, to Hearthstone Grandmasters. This is our winners match for the day. We unfortunately have already seen Frosty and Blitzchung go down to our losers match, but that does, of course, mean on the bright side, we have DawN and Glory in the upper bracket match. This means that the winner of this series will go on to our semi-finals on Sunday. For Glory, he is already guaranteed to get into Division A, so it's really just about proving his spot in the Asia-Pacific scene. But it's a different story for DawN entirely, who we really haven't seen very much of at all.
Sure enough. I mean, DawN has everything to play for now because obviously how the weekend will pan out determines who actually ends up in Division. DawN is one of our quote-unquote 4 players fighting for the 8th spot. If we're going to be very technical about it, it's more like 5 players fighting for 7th. But we did determine that Alutemu in most outcomes will get that 7th slot. So we did already see what the bans were. And of course, the decks remaining include these 3 classes on the left, Paladin, Shaman, Druid. I feel like that's been a given as of today.
Yeah, no. Taking a look at the percentage of times that decks have been left up, like Paladin has been left up 0.9% of times, Shaman has been left up 2.7% of times, and Druid has been left up a staggering, equal 2.7% of time. So it's very clear that they are the vast majority being banned here. I believe we just got word that it's going to be a Paladin versus Shaman matchup. Didn't quite get who was going to be on who, or who was going to be on what deck there. But at the very least, it is going to be a matchup we've seen a few times here so far. And I'm starting to get the impression that unless we see the Paladin get off to a very explosive start in the early game, I kind of like where Shaman is at in this matchup. I feel like they can do slightly more powerful things given a little bit of setup time.
Right. And if we're talking about how Shamans were built, DawN, I think, has a very, very heads-up inclusion in the Magic Carpet, which helps a lot in aggro mirrors, which, of course, he was expecting to see a lot of this week. However, on the other end, Glory's Shaman has double Hungry Crab, whereas DawN's is still running the sludge server. So already tech inclusions from players being seen. It's just gonna be interesting which one will be useful and when.
Indeed. But a pretty exciting start there, actually, for Glory, it's got to be said. I was going to say that Manatide, as I thought he had in his starting hand, looked pretty good. But either way, he's able to still hit the Totemic Reflection, likely on his Totem on turn 2. You would have to imagine, especially given that he's got Totemic Might. Now it's just even more likely to stick on the board.
Yeah, it's very important as well because DawN has that Hench Clan Hogseed to actually take down any totem. And it would die in the process, taking down the 1/1. But against either 1/3 or 2/4, Glory might actually get to play our first active Totemic Reflection on 3.
Yeah, I mean, this is the only way that Glory would actually be able to do that, because no matter what DawN does here, there will be a totem left alive on at least 2 health on the following turn, I believe. Because if he'd gone for the Murloc Tidehunter on 2, the Hogsteed wouldn't have been enough to take out both. And this way, even with the Hogsteed on board, something will still survive, which means this was the only line Glory could have taken to stick a Totemic Reflection on 3.
Very, very well spotted. It does get punished by exactly the weapon, but not available for DawN. So the best he's going to do is go wide on board. Still pretty scary in its own right.
Indeed. Yeah, it's still very clearly going to be a Totemic Reflection on this turn. If anything can stick on the board, he's pretty happy. There is actually already on board the ability to clear everything off. But, this is effectively 2 cards that Glory has played in Totemic Reflection and Totemic Might. So on value, he's pretty far ahead at the moment.
You say that, but it's going to be 2 value trades this turn for DawN, and going into a Scale Lord on 5, he could just run away with this unless Glory gets a really powerful 3-drop. I'm not sure. Griffin doesn't even do it on this board, so I don't know what can.
A Karma's a pretty good start.
Okay. Yes.
Right?
It is. Then he can just play the Intermission to deal with the 2/1. I like that.
Overcharged and ready to fight.
The Tempest. I guess maybe I'm caster visioning on the Scale Lord.
Yeah, it's the Orc Merchant is a little bit more flexible as well, obviously, because he could use it to hit his own Karma. or Tempest, which I quite like.
Like the order from DawN, attacking and then putting the Divine Shield.
Very smart.
Because otherwise the Akama could have taken an easy 3-4 into 1-3 trade.
This is very awkward.
Indeed. I feel like the turn could end with the Og Merchant shielding the Akama.
Yeah, that's what I'm
it
looking at.
It doesn't really line up well because DawN has essentially 2 Argent Squires. So does he have
maybe
a
you just
tide?
you could Orc Merchant the 2-1 just to kill it off, leave
Right.
Akama stealthed potentially, and go Mana Tide as well, like you said, to try and draw, and then turn after Evil Totem, Reflection, and then Storm's Wrath. I don't know. I feel like that's potentially a winning line.
Probably.
I'm looking at the Evil Totem Storm's Wrath this turn.
Oh,
I
okay.
like leaving it stealth. But the thing is, the Mana Tide just dies right away, and then you probably expect
does.
DawN to develop more on that turn, so I think it might be a little bit too slow.
The thing is, though, you say it dies straight away. It soaks a hit from the Scale Lord if he actually wants to kill it off with what's represented on board.
I feel like there are a lot of panouts where the Mana Tide dies to something else. Aside from the Toxfin we can see, there's War Leader, there's a weapon, another rushing minion. But to be fair to Glory, it seems like he does need a huge swing to get back, not just one Evil Totem turn.
And the problem is that if he goes Evil Totem Storm's Wrath on that turn, that means he's on 5 mana for turn 6, so he wouldn't be able to go Mana Tide plus Totemic.
But this turn, though,
It's very awkward. But this is not awkward for DawN.
Battlegrounds, and
Yeah,
everything
this
is
is
Divine Shield poisonous.
very easy for DawN. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm not really sensing an avenue back in for Glory anymore. It's, I guess, going to have to be Ethereal, into Earthquake, is what I'm seeing.
Oh yeah, that would be a full board clear. But those are not spell lackeys. And DawN, funnily enough, because of the Divine Shields, can't create space for the spell fin to come down.
That is quite funny. I mean, I suppose that is actually technically a reason why you should maybe not Divine Shield your Toxfin. Because I feel like you're so far ahead on board already that maybe giving yourself room. I mean, it's a very minor thing and maybe not even correct, because he's still winning anyway. You know, playing a minion doesn't really matter.
Very minor indeed, and Hungry Crab, very devastating in the early game, but this far behind, not gonna do enough. DawN takes the first game in a quick fashion, with same as almost every game we've seen today.
Yep, very big win there by DawN. You can see it from his reaction. Taking a win with the Paladin has proven to be a recipe for success so far today, as DawN took his win over Blitzchung with the Paladin Mirror to start things off and ended up taking a pretty convincing win in the series overall. And so I think that's a very good start now, as DawN is left with only his 3 better decks, I suppose you could say, in the Shaman, the Druid, and his remaining class, which was the Zoo?
I think so.
Or the... Yes. Either way, we'll take a look in a second. But the main point is Paladin out of the way is good news.
True enough. And it's not all over for Glory yet, though. If his 7-0 Swiss score was any indication, I think he's definitely got the play to back it up for this week. And can't wait to see him try and turn it around.
Me neither, Gia. But sadly, we will have to wait. Whether we can or cannot wait, it is so. We have to go to a quick break before we jump back with the conclusion of this series, so don't go anywhere. It's time to continue our series between DawN and Glory. Once again, the winners match. And jumping straight into things this time, I think we're going to get to see for the first time here this weekend a Hunter deck, which is something that I wouldn't necessarily consider to be in the bottom 4 classes at the moment. I would say Hunter's a pretty decent deck at the moment, Gia.
I would definitely agree. Even going off of last week, we saw players bringing it when they could only bring 4. Granted, that was in a last hero standing format. But you know what? In this particular case, when after 6 decks are banned and you expect the remaining decks to be kind of aggro, going right on the board, trying to get the early game, I actually think it might be smart to leave up Highlander Hunter, which is what Glory has. Because it probably doesn't have the removal tools as well as the other decks might.
Well, we'll have to see if it's got the tech tools as well to fight back. I would be very unsurprised to see a Hungry Crab, but I would be wrong. I feel like that's a fairly easy slot into a... Actually, I'm going to take that back. I was going to say it would be a fairly easy slot into a Highlander deck, given that, you know, you're playing a lot of weird little tech cards anyway. But given the Scavenger's Ingenuity is in the deck, you don't really want to draw a beast, the Hungry Crab, off of that, given that it's a beast. So maybe that's the reason why he didn't go for it in this deck.
Things I think about as just Highlander inclusions for anti-aggro are generally Overconfident Orc or Rusted Raider, which are not present in the list. Granted, that's not a common inclusion for Highlander Hunter. But Glory's managed to put together a very strong early game curve. He got the Dwarven, which is absolutely nuts versus Token Shaman, I think.
Yeah,
and,
very, very powerful.
Got the Hench Clan and Primordial as well, and Zephyrus!
Woof.
Oh my.
Definitely going to have to... Well, sorry, definitely considering playing off mana here. I obviously prefer the Hench Clan to the Hero Power here, given that it just develops a 2-1 with the Death Rattle. And yeah, I think playing off mana for the Primordial Explorer is definitely worth it, given the threat of Totemic.
As for DawN here, he did fall behind a little in the early game, but the inclusion of Magic Carpet and 1-drops gonna pull him back here. He can take a value trade over the Dwarven Sharpshooter and see what Glory has got up next. Zephyrus could give Shadow Word Pain here if he's being cooperative.
I feel like it's extremely likely to offer it here. I'm going to say 100%.
Point to you, Derek. That is the Pain.
That was a risky one.
And now DawN. Oof.
Oh, there's something here. If only Splitting Axe was like the Bog Spine Knuckles, and it was whenever you attacked, it doubled it. Then you could set it up this turn. I mean, that would be insanely broken if it was that, but it would still be.
And we've seen this from almost every Shaman game where the Splitting Axe was drawn, is that the opponent is very aware because they've had to play Shaman too.
Yep.
And so they clear off all the minions going into the Splitting Axe turn, or as many as they can, and suddenly it's just a 4-mana Fiery War Axe. And he's still gonna play it! Oh!
Oi, oi, oi.
You know what? I understand why, because at least the next turn he's got the Evil Totem, Totemic Reflection. But man, that's painful to watch.
Splitting Axe. More like Splitting Headache Axe, because that has given me one of those. Wasn't very good.
Got the Ooze as well.
Yikes.
Just a split axe now.
Alright, the power play, if you can call it that, does finally come down now for DawN, though. There's not really any thought about it. You are just slamming this Totemic Reflection.
It's just so
and
sad.
Hoping the lackeys can carry you to victory.
Completely agreed. It's just so sad that our definition of power play is spend 3 cards to make 2 2/6s on turn 5, whereas Druids are spending 1 card to make 7 2/2s.
Yeah, and that is why Shaman is not a very powerful class at the moment.
This is all part of my Druid propaganda campaign. Anyway, okay, can he get... Okay,
No.
Tyrant might come into play turn 8.
It's Bran next turn. There are 0 outs for DawN. He's just dead.
Okay. What about Double Witchy Blast? This is a Taunt Totem, and then both of the 2-drops are Doomsayers. What about that?
Okay. I mean, I still think he's losing by quite a long shot, but we'll go with that. And he's clearly going for that as well, I think.
Going for something. To be fair, if the play is Brand this turn, that's just 2 minions that can attack, and DawN's got Flame Tongue with presumably 4 minions, because I really don't want to see this King Crush trade into a minion. But maybe Glory would respect it.
I mean, he doesn't even have to go King Crush this turn necessarily. Kill Command plus Scavenger's Ingenuity was not that bad. But King Crush on turn 7 is usually the correct play, it's got to be said.
If it's going face. Ooh! A respect!
King trade, disgusting.
Well, you can Flame Tongue, trade 2/3 attacks into the Varanus, and then trade a 4/3 into Brand.
Okay. I mean,
I'm not saying it wins, I'm just saying it's what he can do.
Yeah. Sure. I wonder which one you'd actually take out. Would you take out the Crush or the Varanus? Do you prefer 1 attack or 1 health?
Well, if you kill the...
Neither of them die to Tyrant in any scenario, I don't think.
It's true.
Unless you want to take a completely different line and set up the Twin Tyrant, you could like kill off the Varanus and then damage King Crush.
Sounds fancy.
Probably better. I don't know, yeah. Or just hope for Battle Mage can get that, sure. Yeah, this is good, this is good.
Even Alex draws the next turn. He's just had all the Highlander cards with a 1-drop, 2-drop start.
Yep. Yes, indeed.
Okay, to be fair, this Tyrant could be great if it just avoids the Zixor. Left and left again. Nope.
Yikes.
Okay, Alex Straza. What are the 2 worst dragons?
Life and hope.
2 fairy dragons. Even that probably
That
just
gets
wins
there.
the game. Yeah. Oi.
Oh my god.
My dream is your
Yeah, I mean, we were predicting it at the start. Hunter is just a pretty good deck right now. Shaman, in general, is just a not very good deck right now. This was usually going to happen, I think it's fair to say.
I think the nature of the way Shaman is built is that all its matchups are just stomps, either one way or the other. Because if you get the totem into Splitting Axe or Reflection Start, and your opponent doesn't have the answer, it looks super one-sided. But if your opponent can deal with those early minions, and Glory had the juice to do so, then all of the payoff cards do nothing and the deck looks terrible.
I will say, I think there's optimations that could be made in the Shaman, maybe cutting some of the, trimming the fat away from the superfluous win conditions. Like if, I feel like some of the cards like Bloodlust, and the Totemic Surge as well, you could argue that you need to go for more 1-drops, just more early game, because the matchups that Shaman is winning is when they win the early game, and the matchups they're losing is when they lose the early game. It's like it's straight up just having to win the early game turns 1 through 4, and if you don't, it's game over. And that is exactly what happened there versus the Hunter.
I think that a good way of framing it, or just explaining why Shaman is not really successful as an aggro deck in the current meta, is because all of the other decks that have good early game plays, they're able to generate card game value while still putting on a decent sized minion onto the board. Shaman's best way of generating minions are cards are Evil Totem and Manatide Totem, both of which have no attack, and they die for free to everything the opponent can play. So it just tends to either fall behind or run out of juice.
It's like Totem Shaman is the Donald of Hearthstone, where it's very, very weak when you got to play the totem out, but eventually it's worth the rewards later on when it's very powerful.
I do love my Fire Emblem references.
Yeah, that was a reference just for Gia right there. With the decks that are left remaining now, I would say it definitely still favors DawN, even though we're at 1 game apiece. With the Paladin taking a win, definitely the hardest deck to get over the finish line. To be fair, Glory could just not queue it up for the rest of the game. It's a very valid way to approach it. But having said that, I think it's still looking to be slightly favored now that the Paladin is gone.
We can see DawN's actually had his Mage left up. Maybe it wasn't the Warlock. And that is one where, if I recall, week 1, Surrender versus Staz, this matchup was played out. And if Surrender hadn't been very, very cautious in the early game with the Doomsayer coin Ray of Frost, Staz could have run away with it.
True.
But DawN has the early game juice if he wants it.
It's kind of a tough choice as to how this Zephyrus is played, actually. Because there's a lot of good cards that it could offer over the course of the game. But are those better than just going for Wild Growth?
With a hand like this, I would be inclined to hold the Zephyrus as well. Because he's not ramping into Reno. You could say you're ramping into Box, but even with Wild Growth, that's still not till turn 9. And he's got Arcane Breath and a 2-drop. Glory making sure that the Evil Totem stays alive as best as he can. Look at the bad news that the Arcane Breath is active. Oh my gosh.
And with +1 spell damage on.
Right.
Is it just Icicle? Just for like a good single target damage spell? I don't know, maybe Missiles is better.
I don't hate it, yeah.
What to do? What to do?
It seems like the rest of the turn will just be trading into the Evil Totem. So between the two, one has a 100% guaranteed chance of killing the Hungry Crab and the other doesn't. So I was looking at Icicle as well.
Yeah, I'm not even really looking at killing off the Hungry Crab here, to be honest. Like, I suppose the downside is if they play Flame Tongue Totem, then you don't necessarily have a board clear on the following turn. But you're pretty likely to, and you could just play Zephyrus if you had to.
I was just looking to clear it because I feel like Zephyrus gets better, and he's got a turn 4 anyway, so his mana's kind of spoken for after this turn. Wow, backstab? Almost. This is a very, very just low value use of Zephyrus.
Yeah, and like, I know it's not an especially good splitting axe, but to be honest, it's a pretty good splitting axe here. Just being able to take out both the minions very easily, it's not bad.
Fiery War Axe at 4 mana, still good.
Yeah. Who'd have thought it? Yeah, I think you could definitely argue that was a slight overextension. To be fair, it definitely, from DawN's perspective, maybe he's thinking, oh, brilliant. Glory just had to use his most powerful card on trash just to clear off my board to stay in the game. Which is another more positive way of framing it, at least.
The thing is, DawN just doesn't have value in hand. And to be fair, his deck is more predisposed to drawing value off the top compared to Glory. So maybe he's thinking if you just go toe-to-toe here, you'll be fine in the late game. But his turn now is just Ice Barrier Ping. Because you don't want to Doomsayer into an egg and kill off your own Twilight Tree.
Okay, I'm just going to say it. Egg is definitely a totem. Look at it. It's literally got a face sticking out of like a rock thing. It looks exactly like Stoneclaw Totem. That should definitely get buffed.
Is it a buff?
Well, it should be copied here by the splitting axe.
Alright.
Just saying.
What a strange game. Is DawN just gonna pass next turn and Glory's not... Yeah, he is! What?
Okay.
What? And then Glory is also probably not gonna do very much.
I feel like this is still just so heavily weighted in DawN's favor. Like, as soon as turn 8 hits, it's just game, right?
Hey,
Agreed, but this is just such a... I haven't seen a mid-game like this in Hearthstone in so long, outside of our testing.
Yeah, this is very strange.
It just seems like decks these days in the mid-games are playing 5 minions in a turn, or drawing 4 cards that cost 0, or something.
Gonna be honest here. I don't exactly know what DawN was trying to achieve with that arcane missiles, because even if he hit the beaming sidekick, his Doomsayer still died.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, chase your bliss. You got to do you, DawN. Okay.
Well,
it's a fair bit of damage, to be fair.
yeah. I guess he just plays the Storm's Wrath, kills the Doomsayer.
Yeah. The damage efficiency does go down a little bit. I don't think there's any way he can cleanly kill it with Storm's Wrath, but I mean, who cares? It's not a big
The argument for Bloodlust now is that playing Storm Wrath now puts him down to 7 mana next turn. So he can't go like Bloodlust plus, say, Serpent Shrine off the top.
Sure, yeah.
But
Oh no, wait, you can kill it off the egg. Yeah, perfect utilization. Oh, but he didn't attack face because he expects it to be Flame Ward, right?
is that in the deck? Let me check real quick.
Which is in the deck. Okay,
Okay.
fair enough.
Fair enough.
Most lists have actually cut that now. We're seeing a lot more barrier than Flame Ward. I mean, obviously we know DawN has the barrier, not the Flame Ward, but it's still working pretty securely in his advantage.
Makes sense for this week.
I wonder.
Yeah, that's true.
Glory can Bloodlust now and trade. No, it has to be all face, right? And then you just cash in the weapon attack because you might get frozen.
Okay, good news for Glory. Probably should hero power first. Okay, he sees it. I thought he was gonna do it there.
Make a little oopsie, and this is quite a bit of damage.
Rude.
Going face. Wait, nope, he is trading. Right.
Oh my god, I think I know what this is all gonna come to a head with.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
There's only one card it can be, Gia. There's only one card. Is second Bloodlust actually just out now? For,
Yeah, well, he's got
Glory?
13 showing even past the freezes, and second Bloodlust is another 12, so that's 25.
However, Frostnova could put a stop to that, and I mean, I would expect to see it from DawN, right? I feel like this is far and away the most likely turn he's gonna die. I guess if Box completely whiffs.
Oh, sorry, it's not even lethal because the Bloodlust
Is it not quite
wait,
lethal?
wait,
Oh,
wait,
okay.
it is.
I kind of just assumed it was.
I think it is.
8, 13,
Yeah. That's...
and 12. Yeah.
So...
It's exactly lethal.
Wait, is that... It's red.
Oh!
What?
What? DawN could have played around that!
Oh my god! I thought for a second it was Flame Tongue because it was red, but... Oh my god, Sarah. Now, obviously we have to discuss DawN's line of play,
Yeah.
which is maybe he got too complacent, yes, but it
Okay.
was like a 1 and I felt like 20 plus cards left in the... Okay, I don't know how many, but the thing
Yeah.
is, if he hadn't developed anything there and just played Frost Nova, the next turn would have certainly been Box, barring anything off the top.
Yes.
So the question was, did DawN believe that Box gave him a better than 19 out of, I don't know, chance? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well,
let's say there were
I
20
guess-
cards left.
the thinking was that he could go Mana Saber on that turn, not die, and then just go cheese the freeze for lethal. Just go like Caligos freeze,
Right.
and then try and just go for lethal over the next couple of turns. Which
Or even if it's not lethal,
May-
it's getting back the board in a conventional and near guaranteed way. But
I mean, I guess it's just whether or not you think that's higher than a 1 out of 18 chance. Maybe it is. To be fair, it was very unlikely that it ended in exactly that way for DawN, but it's the risk he plays. with playing with that strategy.
Crazy. And that means Glory now has to win either with Paladin or what I think is his pet deck and my pet deck, Druid, versus DawN still having his own Shaman left up. But I think he'd be more predisposed to queuing Mage because it is the good deck left.
Yes, I think I probably agree. I mean, it seems like so far the deck that DawN doesn't want to queue is the Druid, given it's the only one that he hasn't queued so far. Glory, like you said, though, is very much more predisposed to playing that Druid, and so I would expect to see him go for it here, even with the potential of matching up against the Shaman.
And I do think we got confirmation on that matchup. So here is where I think Druid could potentially struggle if they don't. Oh, tossing the crystal power is a bit interesting to me because we talked about how Shaman can run away with things if they just stick a minion going into the reflection turn, right?
Right.
But to be fair, I guess the crystal power doesn't actually deal with Flame Tongue or Mana Tide, and they're probably likely to buff the health. I don't know. I feel like I would have been inclined to keep at least one piece of removal as Druid there.
However, you can, despite throwing away the crystal power, which I was a little bit surprised by, you cannot argue that Glory is not playing for the defensive line. With Innovate Rising Winds for the 3-2, he clearly realizes how important early dominance is in this match.
And I wouldn't be surprised also to see him use Ironbark for full mana, just to get a nice trade onto this.
I totally agree. I think that's a very nice play, actually, from Glory. And it's not just like he's seeing here, oh, Ironbark's pretty good. He definitely made this play envisioning Ironbark on the following turn.
The hand for DawN is extremely awkward, as we've seen happen so many times for Shaman. Can't even use a spell this turn without either floating a mana or wasting the health just to activate Marsh Spawn.
To be fair, Gia, if we want to get statistical, coin Splitting Axe for no Battlecry value into Splitting Axe for no Battlecry value has a 100% win rate so far in Grandmasters.
Oh my god.
It's clearly the absolute nuts that DawN has drawn.
But Glory with the second Ironbark for full mana, playing around the coin Splitting Axe.
It is truly the best possible Shaman hand versus the best possible Druid hand on the other side.
Ever so slightly depressing to watch. The 6 health just dies to trade hero power.
Yeah, it's not doing a whole lot of anything.
Oh, and the Fungal Fortune.
It is a spell played, though, it's got to be said, which activates Marsh Spawn on the following turn, which is always a chance for DawN to get an insane spell to pull back.
He even holds back on the Fungal Fortunes. That's how much Glory is saying, I am going to win this matchup through early board.
I think it's very smart. I think that you could definitely make the argument that Glory slipped up a little bit on the deck building of his Druid this week, given that a lot of other players have put in Bees, Tree Enforcement, Swipe, Starfire, or Starfall, sorry, whatever it is, any kind of AoE or early game removal. Glory has missed out on that, but in his gameplay approach to this matchup, I am very impressed so far.
I kind of wanted to see the Fungal Fortunes. I won't argue that the rest of Glory's play has been very on point. And even this is not strictly... it's definitely not wrong. I just question it because I feel like there's so much that he can potentially gain off of the Fungal. You still would have been able to clear off the Totem with hero power. But just drawing something like Glowfly Swarm could lock out the game.
Yeah, I guess, but then the thinking is that, you know, if the Shaman goes wide next turn and you only have one minion on board, do you have the liberty to play Glowfly on 5 even if you draw it? I don't know.
Well,
I wouldn't have hated either line.
He's been nothing but consistent, so that I completely respect. All of the Rising Winds used for minions here, and I guess you realize that he's got the guaranteed card draw on turn 7 anyway, if it even gets that far.
I like as well that Glory's giving us a little advertisement here for the Americas playoffs, the Americas Grandmasters happening a little bit later today with the triple Eagle Strike.
Well, yet again, we're forced to imagine some type of lackey outs. The scheme could maybe help later on. But
For sure. Yep. Definitely setting up for a scheme next turn, it feels like.
DawN has assumed the position. Oh, gosh.
Oh my god, this is a really powerful play from Glory, but it walks exactly into Hagatha's scheme here. It's a lot of damage that DawN has got to tank, it's got to be said. But he has the clear.
He has it, and he's got at least one piece of refill. I would like to see him coin out the evil totem, because this is the best window it has to maybe generate more than one lackey.
The other consideration was whether he should have gone Sludge Slurper, coin Goblin Lackey to not tank 6 damage.
It's fine. Would have to be exactly double Savage or Innervate Hero Power.
Fair enough. Yeah, I wasn't so concerned so much about immediate lethal. It's more just like getting close to that range. But overall, I think I agree. This is
even still, board clear has nothing on an overflow into exotic Mount Cellar, or even just one spell. Does he just equip the axe here? Okay. So he will have 1 spell damage sticking this turn, unless he evolves something. It's getting to the point where I'm thinking about Ethereal Lackey into just multiple lightning storms, if that's possible.
The finest creatures.
not the most impressive Mount Cellar we've ever seen, but it doesn't have to be in this instance. Okay,
Ethereal
that's a good lackey.
into Serpent Shrine? That's a good one. Right?
Okay, that is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it Soul of the Murlocs?
Oh, yeah, with
Bloodlust in hand?
Hmm.
That's pretty nuts. Yeah, yeah.
I see it. He can even play the Rush Lackey as well. Is there
how does
a
he want to
way?
deal with everything?
I think the weapon goes into the Mount Cellar, because he's got to clear it. So he rushes the...
Okay, he can stay alive if he rushes the carpet. I think with this line. Oh no, okay,
I was
sorry,
thinking he would buff the Ethereal, and then...
Right, okay. The rush of the Goblin Lackey keeps him alive, just about.
Yeah, I guess he couldn't have recorded
Yeah.
the face damage, given that double roar is in hand.
5 burst damage available.
How strange. He can at least Wrath and Hero Power, and Moonfire, and another Wrath.
Still no Glowfly though for Glory, which is just
Right
what
at
he
the
so
bottom.
desperately needs here. Oh my god, how weird.
So now he can pivot and just deal with the carpet and Hero Power that down, and then Moonfire one of the Murlocs. That leaves 3 minions on board. I think that's relatively safe.
Would you rather kill the carpet or just go like Wrath for 1 on a Murloc and then Moonfire to clear space out of hand? Like, I don't really know what carpet's doing, especially at this point.
That's fair. Yeah, so he is
I'd
just
just
gonna
rather
go
guarantee myself Glowfly or Mount Cellar next turn.
Agreed. So does he even just Wild Growth and Moonfire here?
I'm looking at it. I think I like Wild Growth and save the excess mana for next turn in case you top deck the Mount Cellar.
Yeah. Huh. I don't know what Hero Power accomplishes versus Wild Growth. Wait,
it gets
it's
him a little bit closer to lethal.
just
but still
a
not
little
there.
bit. Yeah, he's got
Yeah,
5.
I think I probably preferred the draw next turn, actually.
All of these pan-outs have been so weird this series.
Very, very weird series.
Okay. Anyway. Urban Evil, no choice but to go all in, right? Hope that something sticks. I think Glory's almost all the way through his removal at this point.
Okay. There we go. That is the card he was looking for. Now, completely dominating the board. I guess Glowfly,
The Wild,
Power of the
Beam, Hero
Wild,
Power.
yeah. Yep. I was wondering if you go for Soul of the Forest because you're afraid of anything, but with no generated spells and one Lackey in hand, it would have to be exactly Ethereal Light.
Here's my question, Derek. Does one top deck Bloodlust beget the other? Oh, there's only one in DawN's deck! It's not possible!
Playing the one Bloodlust list. Would have been 12-24. Would have just about been lethal, actually.
Yeah! I mean, that was the theoretical out, but not even possible. So, what are we looking at? Evolving into...
Abomination doesn't do it, and you can't even get to 5.
So it's Bloodlusted for trades? Ugh!
Yeah, my sentiments exactly.
I mean, he has to. With 4 cards left in deck, he must know there's Savage. And can't just play a Witchy Lackey first because it's getting a rush, right?
I mean, he literally can't clear enough stuff to stay alive, so it doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
Unless he evolves into whatever disgusting huge minion or 2. Not that one.
Yeah, playing the Lackey first or later wouldn't have mattered because it still gets 3 attack. And there you have it. Glory moves on to top 4 yet again.
Yeah, Glory is so far, I think, very, very firmly cementing himself as one of the top performers so far in Asia Pacific. There is even the argument you could make, although I think Surrender is still, pretty clearly number 1, that in terms of consistency, he is ranking that a little bit higher. If we look at in terms of total series win rate, Surrender's probably a little bit higher, given how well he did in the Swiss, coming 2nd and then 1st, despite not getting top 8 this week. But Glory, so far today, I have been really, really impressed with what I've seen. I think, the only slightly weird thing, as we saw there, was throwing away the Crystal Power at the start. But having actually seen the way he wanted to play that matchup by going for minions at the start of the game and dominating the board, I'm not even sure if Crystal Power was necessarily that good in that strategy. He just knew exactly what he was doing right from the get-go.
I would still have a couple questions because if you're looking for minions in the early game, they would necessarily have to have the buff to kill more than 2 things, probably, because the only early game minions are the eagles, right? So if you don't get exactly minion plus buff, they're just doing the same things that a removal spell would do anyway. So I'm not entirely sure if that was the plan, but given how it panned out, he made extremely good use of what was actually given to him.
That's fair enough, yeah. I think a lot of players may have missed the Innovate Eagle for minion on 1 and instead of saved it for drawing through to their power cards instead. But I think when the hand was there, he played it very, very well. And because of that, he was able to win the series. So let's take a look at the bracket to see where that places him now for heading into Sunday. Because, of course, Glory is now our player going through to top 4, which has actually pretty interesting implications for the rest of the bracket. Unless I'm mistaken, I believe that now locks Alutemu into top 8, because DawN would have to come 2nd and Frosty or Blitzchung would have to win. But of course now Frosty, Blitzchung and DawN, only one of them can actually get through in that runner-up spot. So we'll make sure before we head into the
way I'm understanding
tomorrow's matches.
The scenarios sheet, I think there's still a slim chance that Alutemu doesn't make it, but it requires one of these 3 remaining players in the lower bracket to make it all the way up to finals in the case of DawN, or win for Blitzchung and Frosty. And of course, they kind of cancel out each other's chances because only one can make it to top 4. So I think that Glory is helping out his buddy Alutemu in the best way he can by taking up one of those slots.
very much so. But for the players left in this group, which is who we should be focusing on for the moment, for all three of them, I think it kind of has to be a win for this point in. For Frosty and Blitzchung in particular, it absolutely 100% does have to be a first place or nothing, I believe, in order to get into Division A. And even then, I think there's a couple of stipulations as to whether or not that would even get them there.
Yeah, a lot to play for still. Frosty and Blitzchung, we haven't seen them on stream before this week, and unfortunately we've only seen them take losses so far, but one of them will have to take a win in this elimination match, and that person will be facing off against DawN.
They will indeed. I think we saw some pretty good stuff from both of those players. Even, Frost